Good evening and welcome to our weekly SDG-Hub run by the Center for Sustainable Transformation, CeST, here on Asaase Radio. I'm your host, Kevin Annan, and as usual, I'm here together with my co-host from the Young Reporters for the Environment, Ghana, a program under CeST. Today's topic is particularly insightful: bridging generations, exploring intergenerational equity and environmental solutions. As the environment crisis persists, calls for action intensifies. As the heart of this dialogue lies the imperative for inclusive decision-making processes that amplify the voices of youth who inherit the consequences of today's environmental policies. Engaging young people in environmental governance fosters innovation, fresh perspectives, and a deeper sense of ownership over environmental issues.
Rightly said, Kevin. The question remains, what planet are we living for future generations? Just like other countries, Ghana is bedeviled with, a host of environmental problems like pollution, deforestation, illegal mining, among many others, which poses serious consequences for both current and then future generations. Is an intergenerational equity framework the surest way in tackling the environmental crisis? We get to hear more of that on today's episode.
Absolutely. And joining us today are legal practitioners and representatives from the Youth Alliance for Green Ghana, who are advocating for the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, AMA, to push for an intergenerational equity framework. In the next couple of minutes, we get to learn what intergenerational equity is and why the push for this and next steps for this advocacy. And we've been joined in the studios by two gentlemen, fine gentlemen over here. We have Johnson Ofori, Odruo, Esquire, Director of Project Youth Alliance for Green Ghana, beg your pardon. And we also have Prince Nketiah, Director of Media and Publicity, Youth Alliance for Green Ghana. Thank you for being with us today, gentlemen, and you are welcome to the SDG-Hub.
Thank you.
Yes, it's very good to have you on here. And today we have an all-law affair here, two budding lawyers.
For the first time, I think.
Yes, for the first time, we have two lawyers on the show. So we are very happy to have you here.
Absolutely.
So we are going to get into the topic, but before then, we'd like both of you, to introduce yourselves to us. Tell us briefly about yourselves and what you do. Okay. So I start with you, Johnson.
So Johnson Ofori Odruo is a private legal practitioner.
Okay.
And I'm the Director of Project at Youth Alliance for Green Ghana.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And my name is Prince Nketiah. I'm also a private legal practitioner, and I'm in charge of communications and publicity.
Okay. Can you tell us briefly about what Youth Alliance for Green Ghana does?
So Youth Alliance for Green Ghana is a national youth-led, not-for-profit organization aimed at grassroots mobilization and capacity building of youth from diverse cultural, social, religious, and educational backgrounds for sustained climate and environmental activism in Ghana. Our vision is building a green Ghana for today and posterity.
Okay. Prince, would you like to add anything to what Johnson said?
Yes, to add to what Johnson said, what I can say is that what we are pushing for, that's the intergenerational equity, is something that is in line with our mission and our vision, because we are looking at having a safe environment for present generation and also safeguarding it for future generations.
Awesome. So let's go straight into our discussion. For starters, I'd like to know what intergenerational equity means, and within the context of environmental sustainability. Why is it so important? Johnson.
So intergenerational equity, in international environmental law, assess that each generation shares responsibility for the earth with past, present, and future generations. I think this has been enshrined in key environmental agreements from the 1972 Stockholm Declaration to the 2015 Paris Agreement. Yeah.
Okay. Prince, would you like to add to that?
Yes, to add to that, what I can say is that even if you look at our Constitution and Article 39, it actually talks about the fact that the President needs to hold the environment, in trust for both present and future generations. Yeah. And this is something that we as a nation must rally behind.
Okay. Johnson, so Youth Alliance for Green Ghana has called on AMA to push for intergenerational equity framework, a framework in this regard. Why is that? And can you tell us more about that push?
So Youth Alliance, as part of our stakeholder engagement, called on AMA because AMA has a project under zero waste strategy, clean projects, energy audits, and we felt like as part of AMA's duty, it is important that we call upon them so that together we can push. For the environment, it's a shared responsibility. And as such, if we go to AMA to assist us to push this framework, it is in the right direction.
Okay. So that explains why you've chosen AMA.
Well, AMA is as part of the stakeholders and not only AMA.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they are one of many stakeholders that you'll be involving in this intergenerational equity framework.
Very well.
Could you name a few others? Or
we have the Attorney General, Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, the Lands Commission, Minerals Commission, the rest.
Okay. And so what exactly is the role of AMA among these stakeholders?
So as I said earlier, AMA has projects under environmental law. So we have the zero waste strategy by AMA, which they seek to segregate waste. We have the clean project, which creates an enabling environment for informal sector. They have the energy audits, which also seek to efficient energy utilization, and they also do tree planting. Okay. And we holding the earth in trust for future generation, I think was in the right direction. That's why we.
Indeed. And what has the response been like so far?
Well, we went to AMA and they bought into the idea and they intend to collaborate with us in this regard.
Indeed. So moving on from a global perspective, you made mention in your media, there's countries like Australia, UK, and also even South Africa have these intergenerational equity frameworks. So how can an intergenerational equity framework benefit Ghana's environmental policy and practices? Lawyer Prince.
Thank you. So when it comes to the benefits that Ghana stands to gain from intergenerational equity, some of these has to do with preservation of our natural resources and the environment for the benefit of both present and then future generations. We're also looking at sustainability. It promotes long-term planning of how our environment is utilized, because when we have intergenerational equity framework or policy in place, it will spell out clearly how we are supposed to manage our environmental resources such that both the present and then the future generation can benefit from it. Also, we have environmental preservation. I think I've spoken about that. Then there's also social cohesion, whereby it fosters unity between the present generation and then the future generations, because when the future generation, that's the younger people, sees that the older generation are utilizing the environment in ways that have their best interest at heart, it fosters cohesion and social unity. Unity,
indeed. So, let's talk about some challenges. So people are pushing for this, okay. So what are some, specific challenges that youth face? We are all part of youth, I guess, face in advocating for, environmental sustainability, and how can these be addressed, through this intergenerational collaboration, Lawyer Prince?
So when it comes to the challenges that we face, the challenges are many. Some of these include limited resources. As youth, most of the youth-led environmental activist groups, we are challenged with resources. We don't have enough funding to be able to undertake the projects that we have. Also, there's lack of authority in that the youth encounter resistance from the older generation, because many a time, some of the things that the older generation are involved in are the things that we advocate against. If you take our environment, for instance, things like Galamsey, we know that a lot of big men are into that in Ghana. So sometimes we face a bit of resistance and challenges in this regard. Again, issues about political barriers. Sometimes once you are doing something that goes against the government of the day, you are seen as somebody coming from the opposition. And this can lead to resistance. Sometimes
political.
Yes, education and awareness too. We have programs where we want to create education and then awareness, but because we are constrained in terms of funding, we are unable to do that effectively.
Indeed. So we make mention of this bureaucracy or bottlenecks. Do you face that? Because when you are pushing for this framework, how is it going so far? Well, you're going to meet AMA. So how about next steps? So what about this bureaucracy and bottlenecks? Because it's also part of the challenges that people make mention of. So what do you have to say about that?
Yes, I think so far the reception we've had so far has been fantastic. All the places, all the stakeholders we've engaged so far, they've received us with open arms. And to me, I would say there has been limited or minimal resistance in terms of, bottlenecks, because all the doors that we've knocked, we've been received in a yes.
That's good news. Sure. So, moving on, how can traditional and indigenous knowledge systems contribute to this intergenerational equity, and environmental stewardship in Ghana? Lawyer Prince.
Yeah. So when it comes to indigenous knowledge is very key to this whole push that we are pushing, because we live in a country whereby our agricultural system is basically subsistence agriculture. And if you look at how the environment is managed, looking at people who practice subsistence agriculture, they do it in a sustainable manner, because people do what we call crop rotation.
Okay.
So after they plant, let's say one area of land for, let's say, 2 years, they move to another area and allow that place to actually get fertilized again before they come back to it. So all these knowledge are something that we can also incorporate. And also, when it comes to biodiversity conservation, indigenous knowledge systems often encompasses deep understanding, of how local ecosystem and biodiversity is supposed to be preserved, and it will do us a lot of good when we actually incorporate some of these things into the policy that we are advocating for.
Indeed.
Lawyer Johnson, so in terms of practical initiatives, what strategies can be implemented to engage the older generation? I mean, we usually focus on the youth, but then how about the older generations in advocating for environmental sustainability and intergenerational equity?
So, advocating for environmental sustainability and intergenerational equity, the notion is always that intergenerational equity is for the future, and not the
old people.
The old people.
Yes.
So, I think that we can start by, storytelling engagement, going to the older generation with environmental issues, for them to tell us stories about how the environment used to be during their time.
Yes.
And also we have to plan environmental activities with them. So we can organize tree planting exercise where we can invite the older generations to join us. And also we can also ask questions, because we realize that they have a lot of wisdom. So if you go to them and we ask a lot of questions, they're able to tell us more. And we can also foster intergenerational dialogue. That going against the environment today, what is the fate of the future?
Yeah, it affects posterity. And the older generation will always tell you how things were better before,
exactly.
How the cities were cleaner and more sustainable.
How they used to even fetch water from the,
They used to carry buckets of water on their head to sell. There were no sachets.
I'm sure you're part of. You really
no, I wasn't. I'm not that old. Anyway, so to you, Lawyer Prince, how can we ensure that environmental policies and initiatives in Ghana are inclusive of the needs and concerns of both younger and older generations? So we want to find a balance of both. Things that will appeal to the young people and things that will appeal to the older generation to be able to achieve this initiative.
Okay, to be able to do this, I think we should approach it in a participatory manner, whereby we engage both the older and then the younger generation in finding solutions to some of the problems that we face. Because when we involve them, they will own the whole initiative, and once they own the initiative, they will be more than willing to give their support to make sure it is successful. Again, there should be intergenerational dialogue. It ties into the first point that I raised. So we should create sections whereby the older and then the younger generation can join to find solutions to some of the problems that we face.
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay, still on you, Lawyer Prince. Let's talk about case studies. So some countries around the world have taken the lead regarding intergenerational equity framework. What are some of the examples of successful intergenerational initiatives for environmental sustainability in other countries that Ghana can emulate?
Okay, so far we have Foundation for the Rights of Future Generations.
Okay.
It's an NGO based in Germany. And what they do essentially is awareness creation. They advocate for justice for future generations. And also we have Intergenerational Foundation based in the UK. They also promote intergenerational fairness and protection of the environment for the benefit of future generations. And last but not least, there's a collaboration between UNESCO and then UN Global Pulse that also seeks to protection of the environment for the benefit of future generations.
That's interesting. So a lot of work is being done globally in this regard.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Well, that's very, very, interesting to know. So let's look at building resilience and also this adaptation, because the environmental crisis continue to persist. Climate change is here. So what role can, intergenerational partnerships play in enhancing community resilience and adaptation to, climate change impacts in communities? Lawyer Johnson.
So I think we have to invest much in renewable energy. We also have to consider the agriculture sector so that we can do things sustainably over there. Also, we have to look at green infrastructure, yes, and also create a legacy of resilience among ourselves. I think if we do that, it's going to create a resilience and adaptive to climate change impact.
Lawyer Prince, do you have anything to add to that?
To me, I think he said
it all.
The major things, yeah.
Yes, well said. What role can intergenerational partnerships play in enhancing community resilience and adaptation to climate change impacts in communities? Johnson.
So I think, as we said earlier today, it's the same response as to we mining sustainably. I don't know whether it can even mine sustainable in Ghana.
That's the question that we keep asking.
And even you have to invest in renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, implementing green infrastructure.
So let's in the context of this agriculture thing right now, there's something called climate smart agriculture and all that. Do you think this older generation are really ready to embrace the current change that we are having in this? Because they still depend on rainfall. They want their small way of farming and all that. So when it comes to this intergenerational equity, are you sure this older generation, they're ever ready to embrace what this current generation have to offer for them?
So with the older generation, okay, mostly when you talk about intergenerational, the focus is so much about the youth.
Exactly.
So we need to come to the conscious that if the environment is destroyed, it affects the older generation, the youth yet unborn, yes, and the present generation. So we need to educate the older generation about the impact of environmental degradation. I think
education and creating awareness is key.
Yeah, that's a key thing that we often hear in these conversations of ours when it comes to environmental sustainability, education.
Yeah.
So this has been very insightful. To wrap up, too soon we have to wrap up. How can various CEOs and environmental NGOs effectively communicate the importance of intergenerational equity in environmental decision making to policymakers in a broader community?
Okay, so I think now we need to utilize the social media that we have. It's a powerful tool.
Absolutely.
That we can follow on, and also not to lose sight of the traditional media that we have, like our radio and television, to be able to promote and educate the masses on the need for us to utilize the environment in a sustainable manner. Quite apart from that, I think there's also the need to utilize data and research. If we look at best practices from elsewhere, the work that has gone into this whole intergenerational equity, the potential effects of the things we are doing now on future generations, these things must be brought to light for us to know that the actions we are taking today have deleterious effect on the environment in future. And for that matter, we should all behave responsibly.
But talking about data, isn't it very challenging to acquire data on these things?
I think where there's a will, there's a way. I know the difficulties there, but once we are committed to finding it, I think we should be able to gather data. Yes.
Fair enough.
Because, let me just add this.
Yes, please.
If you look at the effect of Galamsey on the communities where they are, we are all witnesses to this. People are giving birth to children with birth defects because of the chemicals that they use in mining, in irresponsible mining. And then when it comes to the data, I think we can easily get that.
Okay. Sure. Thank you very much, Lawyer Prince and Lawyer Johnson. Thank you both for your valuable insights and advocacy efforts. Before we conclude, do you have any final thoughts or messages to our listeners or stakeholders or anybody that is listening to you? I'll start with you, Johnson.
All right. So what I would say is that we are all in this together, and it is up to us to ensure that future generations inherit a world that is resilient and well equipped to tackle climate change head on. We have to join hands and work towards a brighter and greener future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawyer Prince.
Okay, what I can also say is that the world has existed, I would say, billions of years before we came in.
Yeah.
The people who came before us, if they did not utilize the environment in a sustainable manner, we wouldn't have come to meet it the way it is. And because of this, it is incumbent on us to make sure that we also utilize the environment in a sustainable manner, such that those who will come after us, millions of years to come, they also come and find a safe environment to live in.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your insights and expertise on this conversation. We encourage everyone to join us in advocating for intergenerational equity and environmental sustainability. Together, we can build a brighter future for generations to come and ensure that Ghana remains a thriving, resilient, and equitable nation.
So please tune in same time next week as we continue discussions on all things sustainable development right here on Asaase Radio 99.5 so that people and the planet can prosper. If you have any topic you want us to discuss, please share it with us and shoot an email to sdghub@cestint.org. Remember, dear listeners, the future is in our hands and it's our responsibility to ensure a healthier planet for generations to come. Keep raising your voices, keep advocating for change, and keep tuning into the SDG-Hub for more insightful conversations. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and stay sustainable.
And that's a wrap on the SDG-Hub. Thank you for staying with us. We've been speaking with Johnson Ofori Odruo, Director of Project Youth Alliance for Green Ghana. We also had with us Prince Nketiah, Director of Media and Publicity, Youth Alliance for Green Ghana. I've been your host, Kevin Annan, and I did this with my co-host,
Rosemary Balami.
We go back to Caleb.